Hello, my internet friends. Today we are going to talk about stress. So there is a lot happening in the world right now. Not only are we in the midst of a global health crisis, we're in the midst of a global economic crisis, a global resource crisis, and a mental health crisis. Crises happening everywhere. It's a super scary time for a lot of us, and a lot of us are just now starting to realize how long this journey is going to be. Some of us are dealing with sick friends and family, some of us are now financially struggling or maybe even unemployed, and many of us are now learning to live our entire lives remotely, whether that's through school or work or just seeing your friends and family. It is a super challenging time for us to figure out how we can stay mentally healthy throughout all of this chaos, but at the same time making sure we're staying engaged with our local and global communities and doing our part to help in whatever ways that we can. So I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts and tips I had for managing and dealing with stress in these times of crisis. So I just want to put it out there, I am in no way a professional, and all of the things that I'm saying are purely based off of my own experiences and observations. So how am I coping with this stressful situation? A few tips. Tip number one is to limit your news intake. Over the last couple of weeks, I have just started to feel incredibly stressed by all of the constant news that is happening. And of course, everything around this pandemic is very time sensitive, but I've realized that looking at the news more than once or twice a day has become very redundant and very anxiety inducing for me. What I've been trying to do is spend maybe 10 to 20 minutes every morning listening to a news podcast or researching what the most recent news on the pandemic is. So typically I'll listen to The Daily, which is the New York Times podcast, or the Wall Street Journal podcast, and they'll usually provide a good overview of global updates that we should be aware of. As well, I'll take the time to look at my state and local guidelines. So you can look up your state and local public health sites, and they'll usually have really up-to-date information for you about what you need to know. There's obviously a lot of craziness and new news popping up every single minute, but I found that limiting my news intake to just 1 or 2 times a day has been really beneficial for my mental health. Tip number 2 is to help your local communities if you are able to. So a couple ways that this might look, purchase gift certificates for your favorite local businesses, donating supplies to a cause that is in need, doing acts of kindness for your neighbors, or showing general kindness and gratitude for the people who are still working in this crisis. So if you are able to, anchor yourself as a source of calmness for your community and do your part to help the local people around you. Okay, the next tip is to schedule time to FaceTime or call your friends, family, and other loved ones. So most people know this, but we are very innately social creatures, and although a few days of social distancing might feel okay at first, I think it's pretty common that after a few days of that sort of isolation, people are gonna slowly start to go insane. So it's just super important that we're being very proactive about making time to keep our social interactions. Some things that I've already been doing have been scheduling time to have like virtual Zoom parties, scheduling FaceTime with, or using Netflix Party and watching shows and movies together with people. Just because we are socially distancing ourselves does not mean that we necessarily need to socially isolate ourselves. You can still talk with your friends and your family and your loved ones, but do so from the confined physical space of your home. Okay, the next thing is to have to-do lists. I say this mainly because I found in the past when I have a free chunk of time, a lot of the time I kind of spend it just sitting in front of the TV and watching shows, and this is fun for, a day or a few days, but then after a while it starts to feel very like, what am I doing? I feel really like gross and like a potato. So I find that it's been really helpful to give myself a list of tasks that I'm gonna be doing each day. I think there's a lot of talk around people saying like, oh, you can start like these crazy projects and do all these like big crazy things with this time. I don't think that's super necessary. I don't think you need to write a novel or start the most insane new project, but I do think that it's super important that we're using this time to nourish both our bodies and our minds. I have a few things that I've been keeping on my to-do list: journaling, exercise, and meditation. And then if I'm feeling very like uppity and ambitious that day, then maybe I'll put in a little work into some hobby. But generally, I'm just trying to keep up with small, manageable habits that will be really beneficial for my overall wellness. So my regimen for these activities is fairly minimal. Every evening I'll do a journal entry. This can range anywhere from literally just one sentence to a couple paragraphs, and this is like a good place for me to reflect about the day. In terms of exercise, I've been getting up each morning and just taking a walk around the neighborhood. That's like 20 to 30 minutes just to make sure I'm keeping my body moving. And then in terms of meditation, I use the Headspace app, and I've just been doing 10 minutes each night before I go to sleep. So it's totally okay to be doing quote unquote mindless activities, binge watching TV, going through TikTok, scrolling social media. I certainly have been doing many of those things, but I'm trying really hard to balance those things with other things that will be beneficial. So try and limit your time with mindless activities by keeping a few items on your to-do list that will help benefit both your physical and your mental well-being. And the last tip is to try not to push your stress onto other people. Obviously, a lot of us are feeling very stressed in this time, and there's a lot of tenseness and anxiety in the air, and often that is resulting in a lot of toxic behavior in people, whether that is rudeness to everyday people, racism and xenophobia, just generally people projecting their fears onto other people. And it's just a really ugly situation to have anxiety spread almost faster than the virus itself. So I think it's really important to be aware of it if you are feeling very anxious, and if you are projecting that onto other people, take a step back and remember that projecting those things onto other people will not benefit you in any way. Please don't be that guy to bring all the negative energy into the room and push it onto other people as well. We're all going through this thing together, and the last thing we need is people to be continuously bringing their stressful feelings onto others. Even though this is a very difficult time for a lot of us, I'm pretty hopeful that this will be a very reflective period of growth for a lot of people who do have the luxury of just being able to stay inside. I totally acknowledge that not everybody has the same privilege to have shelter and to be able to shelter in place, or has the ability to do work or school remotely. So please try and remain calm in whatever ways that you can for yourself and for all the people that are around you. Okay, I'm gonna end this on a quote that I heard from the Making Sense podcast. The greatest contribution you can make to society right now is to stay home. If you do have this luxury where all you need to do right now is stay home, shelter in place, and manage yourself, please do. Have compassion for yourself and for others in this crazy time. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!